Hello, my name is Cheryl Meyer, otherwise known as Cheryl M. Health Muse, and I am a health coach. I want to welcome you to my podcast, It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future-Proof Your Health. This is a weekly show that will share lifestyle changes that you can make to support your health yourself. Why do I want to share this information with you? 7 years ago, after being a business owner for 20 years, I woke up one morning in horrific pain where every bone and every joint in my body hurt. I went to the doctor, she ran lots of tests, and then she ran some more, and then she ran some more, and finally she called me and announced she was going to give me steroids, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with me and I should seek therapy. I knew something was wrong, I hurt. So she told me I would be on steroids for the rest of my life, and I refused that I was going to have a life of pain and pills. So why was I going to take steroids if there was nothing wrong with me? So I dug in and started researching, and I turned my business over to my staff. I found a functional doctor who confirmed that I had autoimmune disease by making a series of significant lifestyle changes that I could do for myself. 5 years later, I had returned to relative health. The best part is that I am now 70, and I feel better now than I did when I was 50. I no longer hurt, which is huge. I will always have autoimmune disease, but losing the pain has been amazing. I went back to school at 67 and became a health coach because I want to share everything that I learned with others. And I wrote a book called It Feels Good to Feel Good, Learn to Eliminate Toxins, Reduce Inflammation, and Feel Great Again, as the manual I wished that I had had when I got sick, and my book has won 13 awards. So whether you want to future-proof your health and grow old with dignity and grace without dementia and chronic pain and disease, which you don't need to get, or whether or not you already have a chronic condition like autoimmune disease or cancer or heart disease, and you want to learn about what things you can do to improve your long-term health, or whether you want to improve the health of your families and raise healthy children, because 53% of our children have a chronic condition, I look forward to sharing all this information with you. I will tell you, it truly does feel good to feel good, so let's get started. I look forward to having you join me here every week, and I want to give you hope that if you have chronic pain or chronic disease, you can make changes that will improve your health. And if you don't want to go there, you're going to be fine if you listen to the show and put these things into work. I want to give you information so that you can grow old and have a better tomorrow. So thank you for joining me. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to my third show, and this is the beginning of a series that I'm going to do on how food quality matters. And today we're going to talk about the difference between organic, genetically modified, and conventional farming. I know that when I got sick, I didn't have a clue what the difference between all of these things were. I knew that California had tried to have a law passed that we should know what was genetically modified, and there was so much misinformation spread about genetically modified that I was confused with everybody else and it failed. And in all honesty, it should not have failed. So I'm going to explain to you what all these different things are, why organic costs more than conventional farming, and what the difference is in terms of the quality of your food. So thank you for joining me today, and we'll get started with Food Quality Matters. Medicine is not health care. I want you to think about that for a minute. Food is health care. Medicine is actually sick care. Until you're sick, you don't need medicine. But if you pay attention to the quality of your food, hopefully you won't go there. And that's the whole point of this show tonight, is to explain to you how important it is to eat clean, low-toxin food. The greatest medicine of all is teaching people how not to need it. And that was actually said by Hippocrates, however many bazillion years ago. He understood how important the quality of the food that we eat is. So let's get started. We're going to take a deep dive into organic food, conventionally grown food, and then genetically modified food. And I was pretty appalled when I found out what genetically modified really was. I want you to think about the fact that if you don't take care of your body, you won't have any place to live. You only get one of these. So start to pay attention to, are you feeding your body things that will make it thrive or things that will in the long run make it sick? Because it will catch up with your body, so take really good care of it today. And I can tell you how good it is to feel good, because there was a point there where I had so much pain I couldn't function and I lost that health. And so I'm trying to teach you what I did not know at that point so that you can start to take care of your body, your family's bodies, and you can thrive and live a long and happy life. So why is it important to eliminate toxins in our food? Because you literally become what you eat. So if you're eating junk and you're eating toxins and you're eating heavy metals, your body, your brain, your organs, and your skin, and everything that's in your physical body becomes junk, becomes toxic, and becomes processed. That's a quote from a gentleman named Mike Adams, and he's known as the Health Ranger. The bottom line is your health is probably the most amazing computer that will ever exist. And just like other computers, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't pay attention to what you're putting into your body doesn't have anything to utilize to function on. So if you're feeding your body real live vegetables and fruit, and they are as pesticide and herbicide free as possible, your body gets all the nutrients that it needs to thrive, to get you well and keep you well. That resonated with me on a very deep level when I figured that out. But if you're eating processed food, and that's what mostly the American diet is anymore, then you're also eating low quality food that has very little food value, and your body can't use any of it. So you're eating empty calories. Probably the most amazing thing that I've learned in my health journey is that your body wants to heal you. But you got to give it the right stuff, because if you don't give it the right stuff, the body can't utilize any of it, and then it can't do its job. Food is healthcare because you need those building blocks. And so we're going to talk about the 3 different kinds of growing our food, and then we're going to mention briefly processed food and fast food, and then I'm going to do a whole show on those in a couple of weeks. So what do I mean about organic, conventional, and genetically modified? Organic farming is a form of agriculture that relies on sustainable techniques to enhance the natural fertility of a farm. It includes crop rotation, which conventional farming no longer does, companion planting, biological pest control, and naturally sourced fertilizers such as compost, manure, green manure, and bone meal. Integrating cultural, biological, and mechanical practices that foster cycling of resources, promote an ecological balance, and conserve biodiversity. Known as industrial agriculture, conventional farming refers to the farming which includes the use of synthetic chemical fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides, and genetically modified organisms. Anytime you hear that word synthetic, I want your little ears to prick up, because if it's synthetic, if you don't recognize the name, your body's not going to recognize it either. So synthetic is really important. The GMO definition from the World Health Organization is that genetically modified foods are derived from organisms whose DNA has been modified in such a way that it does not occur naturally through the introduction of a gene from a different organism. So let me tell you what they do. There's two different kinds of genetically modified plants. The first one, they actually breed Bt toxin right into the plant. The reason they do that is because then if the insect eats the plant, it blows up its little stomach so it can't destroy the crop, and so more of the crop makes it to market. But it's not only blowing up the stomach of the bug that bites into it, it's blowing up the stomachs of all of our bees and all of our butterflies, and it's blowing up all the good bacteria in our gut that we desperately need to be able to process all the food that goes into our tummy. And this has become the source of illness. So if we don't take good care of our gut, then everything goes haywire. And so this Bt toxin is going into our gut, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. When it gets into our gut, it starts to replicate. They didn't know that was going to happen when they started this. And so it's the gift that keeps on giving. So the toxin is actually multiplying in your gut, and that's not a good thing. Now, the second kind of genetically modified plant is one that has been made something called Roundup Ready. Roundup is a chemical called glyphosate, and it is freely sprayed on genetically modified plants and also on a lot of our conventional plants. And glyphosate has now had 3 major lawsuits that it has lost because the youngest Kennedy, who's an attorney, got discovery from Monsanto that proved that they have known for 25 years that glyphosate causes cancer. And there are now over 9,000 lawsuits against Monsanto. Lucky Monsanto, they sold themselves to Bayer. And so now Bayer is hitting off all these balls with all these lawsuits. But don't feel sorry for Bayer. Bayer thought they were creating the perfect storm because the chemicals that Monsanto then sold that became part of Bayer are making us sick, and Bayer's making medications that mask the sickness so that we think that we're getting well. So it was a perfect storm. So they are now in mass lawsuits because of so many people who are ill. There's actually someone here in Monrovia that is so sick from being glyphosate poisoned when she was in her native Australia. I should have her on so that you can hear what this poor woman has gone through, because she is really a fighter and she's a hero, but she can explain to you just how horrific being chemically poisoned by glyphosate is. And it's not just being sprayed on your plants a little bit. All of your wheat is being drenched in glyphosate because it gives them a bigger harvest. And so that doesn't get washed off. That all gets chewed up and goes into all your processed food, all your breads, all your pasta. Anything that wheat goes into is loaded with glyphosate, and we know that that's causing cancer. Glyphosate is also freely sprayed so that you know on schoolyards, on public places, in public parks, on golf courses. I caught my gardener with the bottle of it one day and said no, because it would make him sick and it would make me sick. Glyphosate is widely used, even though now it has lost these lawsuits that have made it known that it's cancer producing. And our government is still allowing it to be sold. It has hit the list in California of Proposition 65, but it just is so that it gets a warning that it's going to cause cancer. It doesn't stop it from being sold. So if it's a genetically modified plant, you should avoid it like it's kryptonite, because it's going to make you and your family sick. So you don't want genetically modified. And it's aimed at altering the nutrient content of the food. And they thought it was going to reduce the allergenic potential of the food, but it's actually causing more allergies as well. And so there's all kinds of risks. Now, what are your genetically modified foods? This is a list that if it's in your grocery store and it's not organic, you don't buy it. Tomatoes, rice, summer squash, canola oil, yeast, salmon, not wild-caught salmon, Atlantic salmon, Scottish salmon, cotton, alfalfa, wheat big time, sugar beets, soy. Soy is 95% genetically modified. Peas, Hawaiian papaya. So those are the things that you automatically avoid them unless they're organic, because you don't need Bt toxin or glyphosate in your body. Then we go to organic or non-organic. Whether or not to eat organic or to eat conventional produce can be very confusing. And so when I was making decisions, because I had a lot of pain and I didn't want to have a lot of pain and I didn't want to live a life of pain and pills, I decided to always vote with caution. So I started staying away from things, and as a result, I am here with autoimmune disease without pain, and that I can tell you from being active in several autoimmune communities on Facebook is almost unheard of. But by eliminating all the toxins in my life, my body has been able to help me heal so that I can function again. I will always have autoimmune disease, but I no longer have the pain, and that's huge. So a lot of times, the Monsantos, the DuPonts, the Synergetics, they will tell you that this is all fake news. Don't trust it. Trust your body. Eat as clean as you can so that you're giving your body the absolute best chance to get the nutrients from the plant and utilize them for your health. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a concerned citizen that got very sick with inflammation and autoimmune disease. So I made a cautionary decision to avoid all these chemicals, and it has served me well because I feel great again. So eliminating toxins goes far beyond food, but food is the best place to start. So what was the information that swayed me? If you do your own research, you're going to find the things that I'm listing on the next page, and then you're also going to find an alternative set of facts. Even on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram, wherever you are, you're going to take a stand for clean, non-toxic items. And there's going to be a shill out there that says you're crazy not to believe you, because they're paid to do that. So the fake news isn't the people who are saying don't eat the toxins. The fake news are the people who are the shills who are downplaying all of it and telling you you aren't going to get sick if you eat their stuff. Follow the law, follow the lawsuits, and then listen to your body. If you start to eat organic, then your body will start to celebrate, and you start to feel the difference. And it doesn't really even take that long before your body starts to notice the difference. So I will admit, I started with the point of view that eating herbicides and pesticides and fungicides could not have possibly been good for me. So that's where I started my research. But this got backed up by information that I found, so I am now presenting all this information for your consideration. Number one, big chemical, people who make all these herbicides and pesticides and fungicides, they do their own studies. There's no third party doing these studies. They're doing their own studies, and there's an absence of evidence following that organic real food approach versus a conventionally produced vegetables and fruit. What there actually is evidence of absence. Nobody is studying how good you feel when you eat organic because there's no money in it. But there's a lot of money in convincing you to eat all these chemicals. So there's a lot more to risk when you're eating those things because your body doesn't know what to do with them, and they literally are going to make you sick. You won't find a study on the benefits of kale or spinach or bok choy or carrots, but your body's going to give you the evidence, and that's what's important. And if I can convince you of anything today, it's to start listening to your body and hear what it has to say to you. Had I been listening to my body, I wouldn't have gotten sick. I was so busy that it would flip past my mind so quickly that I didn't even stop to think about the fact that I was getting increasingly ill. So there's hundreds of trolls out there to throw deception on people who advocate a healthier approach. And I'm going to give you a story. I joined an autoimmune group on Facebook. And after 2 months, they asked me to leave and they were going to sue me because I wasn't a doctor, which I'll tell you right now I'm not, but they were going to sue me because I was making lifestyle suggestions. I was suggesting that they eat more real food. I was suggesting things that any human being can make a decision to do for themselves. And it was because of all the trolls in the group who wanted to poo-poo what I had to say, that it couldn't possibly be true because their chemicals were the right way forward. They're not. If you start to eat organic food and you start to pay attention to your body and you let your body vote, you'll know that you're on the right track. I have read several times that there were studies done that showed significant problems with pesticides and genetic modified foods to both animals and humans, but the people who did those studies were fired, their careers were destroyed, their research was destroyed, and although I have no way of knowing for sure whether what they were doing was correct or not, it's certainly disturbing. And what's happened is it's all ruled by money. These researchers who were studying the effect of the pesticides and the chemicals on animals and our human bodies all work for universities. And the universities get a lot of money from the agricultural industry and from the chemical industry. And so when they pulled the plug, those people lost their jobs. So a lot of the research that was showing that what was going on was going to be in the long term very damaging to us got squashed and never came to light. Kind of smells like the tobacco industry, doesn't it? There's just too much money out there. Big chemical and big agriculture often give huge contributions to these universities, and that's where the likely place is for the research to take place. Now, this was my next surprise. There is something called GRAS, GRAS. Chemicals are approved as GRAS, generally recognized as safe. There's no science to back up that they're safe, as the studies are done by the chemical company itself. GRAS then gets approved by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. There's no proof that it's really safe, because there's not been enough of a study done of it to prove that it's not safe. And so it just gets approved as GRAS. So if you see GRAS, know that you should run the other direction. So let's talk about why organic food is more expensive than conventionally factory farmed food. The people who are growing food organically have to jump through all kinds of hoops. The first thing that's important is there are no chemicals in organic farming, which means there's more labor. The Organic Farming Research Foundation explained it well. The organic price tag more closely reflects the true cost of growing food, substituting labor and intensive management for chemicals and the health and environment costs of which are borne by society. Then the second thing is the rules of supply and demand. There is a huge demand for organic than is currently available. So more people want it than is available, which is making the price go up. There is a higher cost of fertilizer for organic crops because conventional crops are using sewage sludge. And chemical fertilizers might not be something that you want on your food, but conventional farmers use them because they don't cost very much and are cheap to transport. Isn't that a ducky thought? Organic farming uses a more natural fertilizer and it's more expensive to ship. 4, organic farmers do weeding by hand. They do not use chemicals that kill the weeds and the crops, and I talked about the fact that these chemicals are killing our bees and our butterflies. Understand why that's important. They pollinate our crops. No bees, no butterflies, no food. So this is not a minor issue, it's a huge issue. Crop rotation. This prevents soil erosion, maintains soil fertility, and prevents future pest infestations. It also, when crops are rotated, we get more minerals up through the plants and into our bodies. And we're having a real deficiency of minerals in our bodies. So when you go to your doctor next, make sure that he tests you, especially for magnesium, because it's responsible for 325 chemical reactions in your body. And more of us are very deficient in magnesium. So just have him test so that you know that you're in a good zone with your magnesium. 6, organic is a longer growth cycle. It takes longer to grow organic because there's no enhancers to speed up the process. But remember, those enhancers might not be good for you, so that's a good thing. 7, smaller volume makes the farm to market more expensive. So there's a bigger demand. It's a smaller farm, so getting it to market is more expensive. So it's getting more expensive on several fronts. Organic certification. I love this one. There's a fee to get certified that you are USDA organic. And there are also additional fees to comply with USDA standards. It's much more labor intensive to keep strict records that have to be ready for inspection at any time. There is no inspection of what they're doing to our conventional crops. They can do anything to that food that they want to do, and the government doesn't care. But if you say you're organic, then you got to go through all kinds of hoops to prove that you're growing clean food. And I think it's worth it to still buy it, even though it's more expensive, because it will save you from getting sick like I did in the long run. There's a cost of covering a higher loss. This is an expense. There is very expensive crop insurance for organic farmers. And since organic farming doesn't use synthetic pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides, they're more susceptible to crop loss. It's much better living conditions for livestock. And remember, what you eat, what that animal eats. So not only is that animal not treated well if he's not pasture raised or eating his natural diet or eating organic feed, but what he's eating is making him not well. And so that's why they're pumping him full of all kinds of antibiotics and hormones and things to keep him healthy until he lands on your plate. So it's really important that you're eating organic livestock that has eaten his natural diet. And the other thing, while we're talking about livestock, they're treated so poorly. You're going to get all his stress hormones, and trust me, you have enough stress hormones on your own. We talked about the last show. If you didn't catch my second show, go back and watch it, because it's all about stress and what to do to release it, because that's a really important topic. Organic food spoils more quickly. You have to buy a little bit closer to when you're going to use the food, because you take it home, and if you don't eat it in a couple of days, it starts to spoil. The problem with the other food and with processed food and with fast food is it could live forever. But is that really what you want to put into your body? Subsidies. The government subsidizes conventional farming. They don't do anything to subsidize the little farmer doing organic. So subsidies reduce the price of the conventional produce, but that's also produce that in the long run has so many chemicals on it, it's going to make you sick. So what is your takeaway on organic food? Is it worth the money? It's closer to the way Mother Nature intended. Food grown organically is not using synthetic chemicals on the crops. So it's difficult for anyone to convince me that eating herbicides and pesticides is good for my body. The soil is more fertile, so you're getting more minerals and nutrients. Chemicals are running off into our groundwater and streams and rivers and oceans. I'm going to do a whole TV show on our water, but it's in the news again. Erin Brockovich is in the news again because Flint, Michigan is not an unusual situation. Right now, Newark is struggling with horrific amounts of lead in their water, but many cities in America have problems with pollutants in their water. And it starts with all of these pesticides and herbicides that are running off into our streams and then our rivers and are going down into our groundwater. So When we get there, we're going to talk about how to filter the water system in your home so that you don't get all of that stuff into your body. But start thinking about that now, because all this chemical runoff is also making us sick. Organic food is ironically more controlled by the U.S. government than conventional farming. This is a good news, bad news scenario. The good news is the government enforces the organic regulations to protect us. So if you're buying organic, you know you're getting something that's clean. The bad news is, where the heck are they in protecting us from their conventional farming practices? So I do have an ebook on my website on how to buy quality food on a budget. So you might want to go take a look at that. Let's talk about conventional farming. Conventional farming is also called big ag, big agriculture, factory farming, industrial agriculture, and it refers to the prevalent farming practices that use synthetic fertilizers and herbicides. Think about it. Side, by definition, means that it kills living things. It's right there in the name, and side means that it's killing something. Pesticides are used to kill bugs, bacteria, and funguses that attack crops used in food production. They're poison, and the accumulation causes harm to humans. Chemical pesticides used in conventional non-organic farming have been linked to cancer, allergies, birth defects, Alzheimer's, and many other disorders. So the truth is starting to emerge. The pesticides being used have until recently only been studied by the company that manufactured them, and our government had accepted them, and they were generally considered safe. Remember that? GRAS, by our Food and Drug Administration. So remember, the people at the head of FDA have for many years been past or future executives at Monsanto. So they were senior vice presidents that went into the Food and Drug Administration, and then when they left the Food and Drug Administration, they got a higher up job in Monsanto. Ducky. The people, it's been like a round robin. They've been coming out of Monsanto and going back into Monsanto, and they're the people responsible to protect my health. They're not doing a very good job of it. Information is now becoming evident that the sides, 6 of them disrupt normal hormonal function, 10 of them harm reproductive organs, 17 cause genetic damage, 5 harm the nervous system, 18 of them harm the skin, eyes, and lungs, and about half of them are made from carcinogens. Conventional farming relies on synthetic pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides to increase the amount of crop that gets to market. Use of chemicals allows the crops to be bigger with less labor, which means more profit and less cost. And then we talked about the fact that Monsanto has now lost 3 major lawsuits. Now, glyphosate is not the only nasty chemical being sprayed on your food. There's all kinds of them. So the big 6 that are making nasty chemicals that are being sprayed on our food are Monsanto, BASF, Dow, Bayer, Synergetic, and I'm sorry, I can't read the last one, but know that glyphosate's not the only one. So what foods have the most pesticides? We talked about what foods had the most genetically modified on them. The most pesticides and herbicides are wheat, strawberries, spinach, nectarines, apples, peaches, pears, cherries, grapes, and celery. Then tomatoes, sweet bell peppers, potatoes, cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, lettuce, imported snap peas, domestic blueberries, hot peppers, and kale. And kale was number 20 when I did this 6 months ago, and it's now on the dirty dozen. It has moved up to like 5 because there are so many pesticides on kale and spinach that you gotta buy them organic or you're eating toxins. That's what you're eating. Other negative effects of conventional farming. Pesticides turn into vapor gas, which then allows them to travel over long distances, causing additional harm to our wildlife and to humans. It's killing crops that are miles away that are owned by somebody else. Atrazine in our water system is an endocrine disruptor that's been shown to cause reproductive damage in frogs as well as damage to other wildlife. Soil on conventional farms is completely depleted of micronutrients, creating a need for more and more fertilizer, and the fertilizers are synthetic, so it becomes an evil cycle. Insects are increasingly resistant. They're going through the changes so that they can stand all these sprays. They're changing as quickly as they're changing the formulas on all of these sprays. Over 400 insects and mite pests and more than 70 fungal pathogens are now resistant to at least one pesticide. We've lost our diversity. There's actually a place in Iceland where in a vault are all of the heirloom seeds, because they figured out a while ago that we're not going to have seeds to make real food at some point. So they have gathered seeds from all over the world and put them into a vault that nobody has access to, so that if climate change becomes really horrific, human beings can still survive because the seeds are still there to grow real food. So we've lost, they're killing our pollinators, which I talked about. No pollinators, no food. So what are the positives of conventional farming? With all of these negatives, is there a positive? Yes. I don't know if you have ever heard of the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. It's a list that comes out every year by a company called EWG, the Environmental Working Group, and you can go to them by going to ewg.org. You can also find a copy of the Dirty Dozen Clean 15 on my website. It's on a tab called Free Stuff, so you can just go get the information. So what is this? The Dirty Dozen are the 12 things that no matter what, you don't want to buy them if they're not organic. It's not worth it. They could have as many as 50 and 70 different pesticides and chemicals on them that are harmful to your body. A potato has 39 chemicals on it. You don't want that in your body. So if it's on the Dirty Dozen, you make sure you buy organic, and in the long run, it will pay off. If it's on the Clean 15, however, and that's things like broccoli. Broccoli's on the Clean 15. I'd love you to eat as much broccoli as possible. You don't have to buy that organic. So you can knock yourself out and not pay the extra money for organic. And that list changes every year, and you can buy them conventionally grown without any fear. The Clean 15 are non-genetically modified sweet corn, avocados, pineapples, cabbage, onions, sweet peas, papayas that are not genetically modified. There is one that is. Asparagus, mangoes, eggplant, honeydew melon, kiwi, cantaloupe, cauliflower, grapefruit, and then broccoli just got added to the list. So buy those non-organic. It's fine. You're not going to get any great amounts of pesticides or herbicides from those, and so you can eat as many of them as you want conventionally grown. What are the other pros to conventional farming? The cost of food production is lower, there's a larger yield, there's larger vegetables and fruits, and it lowers the cost of farming and transportation to the major centers where they get sold. So you're going to hear something if you start to research this, that conventional farming can feed the world, but so far nothing has occurred to prove that that is happening. What we could feed the world with if we stopped wasting so much food. So that's what we need to concentrate on. We waste more than enough food every month that could feed the rest of the world. Think about that. And there's a new study at University of California in Berkeley that has concluded that organic food can feed the world too, only it will feed the world and allow us to grow old and thrive. What are the real perils of genetically modified foods? I was told a story when I first started studying this that genetically modified foods have been around since the beginning of time, and that carrots used to be orange until a Bugs Bunny cartoon had him on his way to Cucamonga and he was eating an orange carrot. And up until that time, carrots had always been white. So I researched it, and it ends up that's not true. Carrots were originally all the heirloom colors that are just starting to come back into the grocery store. Those beautiful purples and oranges and yellows, those were all the original colors of carrots. So yes, they did do some manipulation to get more of them to come out orange, because for a long time that was what the demand was, but they didn't do anything that made the carrot harmful to eat. They just did cross pollination so that what came out of the ground was more orange than the other colors. So don't let people tell you that engineering is normal, because genetically modified has nothing to do with engineered foods. We're talking about the foods that have that Bt toxin in them or that are being horrifically sprayed. And we're talking about how harmful those are to the body. What does Bt toxin actually do to us? It destroys our gut lining. It pokes holes in our gut. Now, I haven't gotten into what causes disease, but one of the things that causes disease is something called leaky gut. I used to think leaky gut caused autoimmune disease. I have since found out that it really covers all of our chronic illness. Leaky gut is partly caused by Bt toxin. Any kind of toxin that goes into our gut will allow our food not to be digested properly, so that it starts to poke up against the wall of our gut. And the wall of our gut is only 1 cell thick. So these 2 large food particles are poking up against the wall of our gut until eventually they rip a little hole in the gut, and they come out the other side and go into our bloodstream, and then our body does what our body is supposed to do. It screams foreigner, and then it starts to attack itself. And that food particle then mimics wherever you're weak in your body, which is how you get sick and how you get disease. So Bt toxin is exasperating that. It kills human kidney, liver, and spleen cells. Bt toxin kills the cell membrane of our red blood cells. It replicates itself in the gut. Remember, I called it the gift that keeps on giving? So it's only in the most negative way that it's replicating it and causing even more additional damage to our bodies. It is a known allergen. In the beginning, they said that GMOs were going to reduce allergens. They have increased allergens. It has been found in fetal tissue and blood. The latest statistic that I read is that a newborn is getting as many as 260 toxins through the umbilical cord from its mother, right at the point of birth. So it's being born with a heavy toxic load right from the beginning. So it's really important that everybody pays attention to this, because we want to have children grow up and be happy and healthy and thrive. And there's a study that shows that it mucks around with our reproductive cycle. It damages sperm cells and it causes infertility. So we've been through what Roundup does to us and who does the studies. There have been a lot of animals dying who are eating GMO grains, but that's causation and not proof. It hasn't been studied. But if the animals are dying in large amounts because they're eating GMO feed, and that's pretty much what they're being fed, then that causation is eventually going to be a pretty strong argument that that GMO is not a good thing. Rats fed soy died within 3 weeks. Cows mysteriously died when they were fed GMO corn. When mice were fed GMO potatoes, they developed immediate intestinal damage and bleeding. There's been a lot of studies, not studies, but people observing that animals are dying. And I also can tell you, I just lost all three of my cats. While I was busy taking care of me, it didn't occur to me that the cat food that I was feeding my three cats, which was the same cat food I had served my previous three cats, now was loaded with genetically modified stuff. And so where my last batch before this batch made it to 2022 and 23, these kitties died at 12, 14, and 16 because they were eating genetically modified food. So these things are impacting all of us on all levels. I don't know about you, but I'm crazy about my fur babies. So it made me really sad when the dots finally connected that I should have been feeding them organic as well. I went through what the GMO foods are already. So I want you to beware because processed foods are loaded with conventionally grown ingredients and with genetically modified ingredients. Wheat is drenched in Roundup, and it doesn't get washed off, so it's going into your body and causing havoc. Canola is GMO Roundup ready, and 90% of the crop is genetically modified. Sugar beets, which is a large place where our sugar comes from, is 90% genetically modified. Potatoes are genetically modified. They don't want them to grow those little eyes that they grow, and so instead they're poisoning us. Papaya outside of the United States is genetically modified. Soy is 90% genetically modified to be Roundup ready. Cotton is Roundup ready, and cottonseed oil is genetically modified. There was a large article about India and how they were all sold crops to grow that were genetically modified. And when they're water buffalo, they're all Hindus, so they are very cautious with their animals. When their water buffalo went out to the field, they were eating this GMO stuff and they were all dying, and the carcasses were all over their fields, and they eventually went bankrupt because the genetically modified crops were causing so much havoc to their environment, to their long-term growth as a farm. Summer squash and zucchini have 40 chemicals on them. Zucchini, 40 chemicals. So if it's not organic, I don't really want 40 more chemicals in my body. And all your processed food has chemicals in it that are genetically modified. So, and that has a lot of synthetic chemicals in it. So if you can't read the name of the thing, your body doesn't recognize it either, so don't buy it. Look for the non-GMO label before you buy. Your kitties and your dogs will appreciate it too. And why buy organic? You don't need to buy organic everything, but where it makes a difference in your health, it's either going to be pay now or pay later. It's really important that you eat organic, because if you don't, you're going to be paying it in big health bills down the line. We have a broken healthcare system right now. What I don't hear anybody talking about is one of the reasons our healthcare system is broken is because of all the toxins in our environment and our food and our water. If we clean it up, then we have a much better opportunity to stay healthy for the duration of our lives. So there's a guy named Joe Salatin who's a farmer, and he commented, "You think organic is expensive? Have you priced out cancer lately? Because these chemicals are causing all of our major chronic illnesses. And so if you eat clean now and you give your body the right nutrients to keep you healthy, then you have a much better chance of living long and thriving. And the other thing you have a better chance of, if you're eating organic and you're eliminating toxins from your life, you're not going to get dementia, which is pretty important. I don't want to get dementia. I want to live to the end and be healthy and thrive, and I want to be all there. So remember that eating organic is a choice. There are now 88,000 chemicals registered, and another 1,500 to 2,000 are introduced every year. The manufacturer is the person who is determining the safety. I don't want my health to be in the hands of somebody who's making a profit off of what he's putting onto the market. So now that you know how harmful pesticides and herbicides are to your health and your family's health, you also understand why organic is the only choice. Now, around here, we are very lucky because we can buy directly from the farm at organic farmers markets. We have a great one in Pasadena that we go to on Saturday mornings, and they are not all certified organic, but they will tell you very freely what they do to grow their crops without chemicals. And really, that's what I'm concerned about. I don't want the chemicals on my food and in my body. And remember, it's all about toxic load. So every toxin you eliminate is one step closer to health. When you buy at the farmer's market, just make sure you talk to the farmer about what he's doing to grow his crops. Don't forget to start with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. It will save you a lot of money because you can buy that Clean 15 non-organic and then concentrate the rest of your dollars on organic produce. People tell me they don't have the money. So let me tell you, if you were hiring me as your coach, what we would do is we would look at your life and we would figure out where you could save money. Are you stopping for that cup of coffee on your way to work? Make your own organic coffee in the morning. And coffee, by the way, is heavily sprayed with toxins. So make your own coffee and buy one of those cups that keeps it warm, because it'll keep it warm for several hours and you'll be delighted because you have a healthier cup of coffee because it's organic that will last you at the office. Okay, you still don't have that. Didn't save you enough money to buy organic. Take your lunch to work with you. You don't need to be going out every day. And if you have to, if you've made a commitment to eat organic, take it into the restaurant that your coworkers are eating in and eat your own organic food. I do it all the time. And I tell them, I can't eat your food because my body's very sensitive. And so, I'm sorry, I'll buy iced tea. And I'm happy to sit there. I'll even tip them well, but I'm not going to eat their food because it's important to me that I eat as toxin-free as possible. There are cook for God's sakes. We've gotten away from cooking. My mother cooked all our meals. There were advantages to cooking. We sat around the table at night as a family. We shared our day. We told funny stories on ourselves every night at dinner, and we ate home-cooked food. It didn't come out of a box. It didn't come out of a car line at a place that was selling fast food. It had real food with real nutrients. And that might be the biggest step that you can take to be healthy and to feed your children healthy things. And let me make one last comment. If you are a parent, 53% of our children today have chronic illness. 53%. I find that beyond frightening. So it doesn't take that long to cook. There's lots of things it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to be Julia Child, who you might not even remember, but you don't have to be some fancy French chef. You just need to be able to steam or roast a vegetable, and you don't need a huge piece of meat. In order to afford it, you only need a piece of meat as large as the palm of your hand. So if you're a child, it's not even as big as my palm. You need the rest of your plate all to be beautiful organic vegetables, and that will give your body all the things it needs to thrive. So sit down and take a look at your budget and figure out where a little shift and a little repurposing can loosen up the money for organic, because in the long run, it's going to save you a ton of money and it's going to keep you healthy. And unless you lose your health, you do not realize just how good it is to feel good. So this is my show on the importance of eating healthy food and how you need to future-proof your health so that you don't get sick. And next week, we're going to start talking about the importance of color when you are shopping, because all the colors of the produce that you can get all have a gift for you, and yet they work together synergistically inside your body to create happy health. So color is very important, and I want you to start thinking about that when you go to buy your vegetables. Buy every single color that you can, because they each have a gift that will make your body sing. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot of things that you did not know before. There is a website called Monrovia Health, brought to you by your friendly neighborhood health coach. If you have questions, you can post them there. I would be more than happy to get into a conversation with you and share with you what I know so that we can keep the conversation going. And I'll see you next week. Thank you. Future-proof your health. It will serve you well.